Hi, everybody. Welcome back. This is Tamara with Finding the Oasis Within podcast. This is your host and the founder. And you guys know me. I like to get straight into it. And today we have a very special guest with us. Her name is Nadia Khaled. Nadia, how are we doing today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I just want to say, and I want to be transparent with you guys always. So last week, her and I tried to record this episode, and we did about an hour and a half, and it was a really beautiful episode. But after I went back and I looked at the video and I was mortified. And I texted her and I said, Nadia, and I didn't tell her, I was not honest. I should have been honest with you, but I really wasn't. I was like, hey, this is kind of how the quality is. I'm not happy with the quality, but let me know how it is. But inside of me, I really wanted to re-record the whole thing, but I'm like, who's going to go back and re-record a whole nother hour and a half? Because these topics are deep, right? No, literally you.
Yeah.
So you guys, I'm just so appreciative because she was so kind and so generous. And she said, do you want to just re-record? And I said, sure.
I mean, just to make it easier on everybody, I guess, right?
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it that you made another appearance here. And this will not be the last time you guys see her, trust me, because there's so many topics that we can cover.
Yes.
But I wanted to specifically start with her beautiful story because, you know, this podcast is all about venturing through people's stories and how they became who they are and how they are creating impact and waves in this world. So, Nadia, I would love for you to just dive into your story from wherever you want to start to how you became the woman that you are today.
So first of all, I want to thank you for inviting me to be on this wonderful podcast. I'm so excited to be re-recording this episode with you. In terms of my story, I think all of this started, I would say maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Because there was a point in time, obviously, where I was not familiar with the law of attraction. I had not been introduced to this spiritual, these spiritual ideas. And so I think what prompted it for me was I developed a fascination with death in terms of where we go after we die. Like, what is consciousness? What does it mean to be alive? What exists outside of what we can actually perceive in this realm? And so I started looking more into it, and I, was looking into anecdotal evidence of near-death experiences, and people were describing these very fascinating experiences with, dying for a certain amount of time and then coming back to life. And what they reported in terms of what they experienced was somewhere along lines of like bliss, just happiness and bliss, and everything felt right and everything felt perfect. And so that kind of led me to look into, what other realms exist and how does physics work? Like, what is the philosophy behind everything and what's the science behind the nature of our reality? And so I was then introduced to the law of attraction. I was introduced to Joe Dispenza's teachings, and I started discovering more and more about the laws of the universe, really. And so another big part of it was I grew up Muslim, from a Muslim household, and I was taught, obviously, the Islamic beliefs. But there was a point in my life where I was like, it doesn't feel right that somebody who does not practice religion the same exact way that I do, I couldn't wrap my mind around the fact that they wouldn't go to heaven just because they've had different beliefs than me, even though they could be like the best person and be genuinely good souls. And so I decided to look into the fundamental nature of everything that exists, and in a way that would encompass the belief systems of anybody, really, because spirituality to me is a very subjective experience. And it's something where one belief system shouldn't be imposed on everybody. It should be whatever resonates with you and whatever makes you feel connected. And so that's another element that made everything kind of click for me, is this makes sense. The law of attraction, the laws of the universe make sense because they apply to everybody without any bias, without any discrimination. And that was a really fascinating thing for me as well, because again, that's one of my biggest values, is like, we are all connected, right? We are all equal. There is no group of people that is inherently better than the other simply because of a religious belief. And so it really led me down that path of like, what is reality and what does it mean to, exist in this realm with this level of consciousness? And so, yeah, it just, again, led me down that spiritual path. And It was really difficult at first because it felt like I was disrespecting my religion that I was brought up with, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
when you're brought up in organized religion, you are taught not to question. You are taught not to ask for explanations. You are taught to just follow the rules and, do what you're told. And so for me, the fact that I was questioning that almost in terms of, is there another way to explain this? Is there another way of looking at this where it's not really fear mongering? And so it was hard to kind of come to terms with that. And it was difficult to be able to live authentically in that way without feeling like I was inherently disrespecting the religion that I grew up with. And so that was a long journey and that was an interesting journey, but I am grateful to have experienced it. And I'm grateful now because I can help anybody who's also experiencing that same kind of guilt of like, this belief system resonates with me a lot more and makes me feel more connected, but I don't know how to embrace it without feeling like I am doing something really wrong.
Yeah.
So,
And you know what? I can totally relate to you on so many aspects, actually, of everything that you've said so far. Um, and everybody knows this is not a political, religious type of podcast, but I'm very open to talking about different concepts. And like yourself, I was also born and raised in Muslim faith, and it's a very beautiful faith. But the way certain things are communicated might not be the right way, where it starts to implement so much fear on us, and then we start to do things because we have to versus doing things because we want to and it feels good.
right.
So I totally understand where you're coming from, and I can relate to a lot of things. And I think it's really interesting that what got you into this was the concept of the afterlife. What happens when we die? And I used to always have this fear of dying and not really knowing. Like the unknown is very scary, right? Nobody likes to be in the unknown, but I know walking this path, being in the unknown is actually a superpower to just keep walking with faith. So was there something specific that made you start to look into the afterlife and start to look into people's stories? And is there anything that you kind of learned about the afterlife through your experience?
Yeah. So here's the thing. There was another aspect of that. The reason why I became fascinated with death was because my grandma had recently passed, maybe like a year prior, and she was the first person in my life that I was close to that passed away. And so it was kind of like, oh my gosh, like where is her soul? I had never really been forced to confront death like that until that situation. And so that's what kind of prompted that for me. But also, I am a very big psychology enthusiast. I have always loved psychology. I studied it in undergrad. I'm doing a clinical mental health graduate program right now. So psychology has always been a really big part of my life and a big part of my personal philosophy. And the more I studied psychology, the more I questioned, what does it mean to live a happy, purposeful life? What does it mean to feel fulfilled? What does it mean to experience like self-actualization, right? Like, what are we working towards? What's the point of all of this? And so that was another big piece of it for me that prompted that research, is learning that you are here to fulfill a certain purpose, and you are here to learn how to use your energy to communicate with the universe, or, higher power, God, whatever it is, that you call it, and co-create your reality in a way that will allow you to fulfill that purpose. And it's not in a way where we're blindly going into it and whatever happens, happens. We have no control over it. It's just about, dealing with the cards that you're dealt. It's actually about setting the intention to live a certain life in a certain way, and taking accountability for the fact that you do have a role in what you experience in this life. And you do have a role in what happens in your life, to you, for you, through you. And so the more I started looking into this aspect of things, it all started clicking of like, we're not meant to just come here, follow directions, do what we're told, do whatever it takes to get to heaven, right? That's another big one, is most major religions will teach you, this is the objective, it's to get to heaven. So when you do nice things, guess what? You're getting a little closer to heaven, right? And so and again, like you said, Islam is a beautiful religion, and it explains so many concepts in such in such wonderful ways. But that's one of the things with any major religion, right? Is that the core of it is really like conditioning people to live in a very specific way to gain the objective of going somewhere, better once they leave this realm, right? Yeah. And it's another big concept is like, this dunya is not something that you need to worry about. What you should worry about is the afterlife. And that's one of the philosophies for me that I kind of I struggle with a little bit, because in my perception and from my research, this reality is a form of heaven. It really is, because you do have control over your reality to some aspect, right? And so using your imagination and using your energy, you literally can create circumstances that would feel like a heaven for you, right? Whatever that means for you in this realm. And so that's another thing, is that, that's what it means to be happy, really, is to maintain your connection spiritually, and to understand that you are not helpless. You are not just a victim of your circumstances. You actually have the power to create or co-create your entire reality. So I don't know if that answered your question. I kind of
100%. No, I think actually you went way beyond, which was just perfect, because you covered a lot of aspects, of what got you, first of all, to thinking about spirituality, what happens in our afterlife. Mm-hmm. Okay, now I have so many contradictions from the time that I was born, and now I'm in my 20s and I'm trying to figure it out. What's the right path? Mm-hmm. So what advice would you give somebody that is going through something similar, that, their heart is telling them the truth is more about creating your heaven here on earth, which to me, to be honest, is how to be able to reprogram these subconscious thoughts? Because at the end of the day, to me, I feel like the devil and like the hell is what's stuck in your mind. Like when you feel like you're in prison, that's yes. really what is hell on earth. And yes. then to be able to break these subconscious programs and to start reprogramming these programs, and to kind of start learning how to develop a very healthy nervous system, which is trying to figure out how to regulate your energy. Okay, so now we have subconscious programming connected with energy that brings in reality, which kind of brings us to manifestation. So, and we'll get into manifestation because you're really big on that, and this is part of your coaching and stuff. Yes. What advice would you give somebody if they are going through something very difficult right now, trying to pick these different paths? And then I'll tell you what I think after, but I would love to hear from your perspective because of your experience.
So I would say I have a couple things, I think. The first one is that you deserve to connect with your beliefs intellectually, not just in a, I think I'm spiritually connected because I was told all my life that this is what's going to, that this is what works, right? You deserve to understand why you believe what you believe, and you deserve to feel connected to that, right? Because something that's really important to know is this idea that truth ceases to be truth the moment you try to force it, right? Ooh, what truth, right? Truth, the whole nature of that word, of that concept, is that it feels real to you, right? What feels real to you may not feel real to me, but that doesn't matter, right? Because this is your reality. This is your subjective experience. You get to choose what makes sense for you, right? And another thing is, it's really important also, because I think this is a big factor, is that external influence, right? Of like, you grew up in a Muslim household where that's the religion that's practiced, no questions asked, right? It's also it's really important actually to learn how to tune out the opinions of other people, and how to kind of take their opinions of how it is that you're practicing your life or your beliefs with a grain of salt, right? Because we oftentimes as human beings fall into this pattern of allowing everybody around us to kind of dictate what's right. But it's about empowering yourself and giving yourself permission to believe in what feels right to you. Because at the end of the day, that's what it means to be spiritual or to be religious, right? It means practicing something because it feels authentic to you, because it makes you feel connected. If you don't feel connected, something's not clicking. There's some other approach that's going to just work better for you, right? Because it is in our fundamental nature to be connected to some kind of a source outside of ourselves that is the big picture, right? So that's mainly what I would say is, and it does take a lot of courage, right? Especially, I mean, like I myself have faced a little bit of an ostracized, right? From a community where it's like, that's not how we think about things. That's blasphemous the way you're thinking, right? And
Yeah.
so you got to learn how to, at some point, kind of disconnect from what other people are thinking and what other people are saying. Because at the end of the day, what makes you light up spiritually, that's what you're supposed to follow. You're not supposed to follow something blindly, because if it doesn't have any meaning, what's the point, right?
Totally agree. So 2 takeaways, guys. What she basically said, number 1, know your worth. Know your worth, work on yourself, develop a very strong inner foundation.
Yes.
Number 2, you have to trust your intuition. And the way you trust yourself, like when you start to trust your intuition and you develop that really beautiful spiritual skill, and it takes time. There's a lot of trial and error. I still, to this day, I'm always learning and doing, small little practices. But when you start to trust yourself, you will know what advice sounds good and what advice does not vibrate with you anymore. And that's okay too. It's learning how to take feedback and how to take maybe critical criticism in a way where it doesn't affect you. And this is something I could talk about this all day long, because this is something that I have definitely experienced in my life, being a girl of 3 boys and, especially coming from Middle Eastern household and stuff. And it's not a bad thing. Like, don't ever look at us talking about, Muslim faith or being Middle Eastern as like, oh, poor me, cry for me. No, we're not looking at it from a victim mentality. Actually, I think that's the most beautiful thing about us, because it was the opportunity that gave us this way of living and being able to look past behind what we were actually taught. And the way, again, communication is very important. So Nadia and I, we love theology, and we love to kind of dive deep into the Bible, into the Quran, into the Torah, just to look at different ways of people connecting to God, to connecting to spirituality, to connecting to different ways of looking at how this life is evolving and what is our purpose here. And I believe that we are supposed to be looking from different directions, not just to limit ourselves on, okay, I was born and raised in this and I should just stick to this. No, go out there. I've gone to synagogues. I've gone to mosques, obviously. I have gone to churches, and I've been able to experience such beautiful connections with God. And that's always been my intention. So you really need to know what your intention is and figure out what is it that you're looking for in order to create your fulfillment. But I would add, so know your worthiness, trust your intuition. The third one is pray. I would tell you there is so much power in the word, because your word is literally like your wand, and there's so much power in prayer that if you feel that you're stuck in a situation and you have no way out, just know with God, everything is possible, or infinite intelligence, source, whatever higher power you believe in. There is something out there, and it is willing to grab your hand if you put your hand out there and ask. And I think this might be a really good gateway for ask and you shall receive, which to me is the ultimate formula, just a little bit of the formula to manifestation. So can you start talking to us about what is manifestation for people who don't know what that is, and how can we implement this in our daily routine?
So, great question. Manifestation is actually a concept, kind of like to segue a little bit from what we were talking about before, right? Manifestation is the core concept of every religion, Abrahamic religions, even the non-Abrahamic religions, right? The whole nugget there is a higher power out there that wants to give you what it is that you're asking for, whether that is, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, all of them teach you that there is a higher power outside, well, not necessarily outside of yourself, you get that, but there is a higher power that communicates with you energetically and works with you to co-create your reality based on what's happening up here, right? So the whole point of conscious manifestation is because, again, manifestation is one of those things you are doing it whether you're aware of it or not, right? It's like gravity. Yep. Just because you don't know about gravity does not mean it's not affecting you, right? So that's one of those things where everything about your life right now is a direct byproduct of your previous thoughts and your previous energetic outputs, right? So what I teach people is how to become a conscious manifestor, right? Which means tuning into your intentions, your desires, your goals, right? Your purpose, and living in alignment with those desires, having faith that there is a higher power that wants to give you those things, and using it to, again, create the reality for yourself where you get to experience what feels like a heaven, right? Of everything that you've ever wanted to accomplish or experience or have or whatever it is, right? Because at the end of the day, those experiences, that's what helps you evolve, right? And this whole concept that, again, if you watch any of my stuff, if any of you guys watch any of my videos or anything, you will hear me say time is an illusion. It is not real, right? So when we say time is not real, that means that the past and the future don't exist. There is only the eternal present moment, right? What you think and what you do in the present moment influences the trajectory of the rest of your life, right? So it's a moment to moment basis, right? If you are not aligned with your higher good and you're coming from a place of fear or anxiety or lack, the trajectory of your life is going to look a lot different than if you are living from a state of abundance, from faith and trust, right? From gratitude and appreciation. That living from that state in your present moment is going to have a different trajectory for the rest of your life, right? So it's really, manifestation is really, or conscious manifestation is the idea that you are in control of the energy that you are putting out with your thoughts, your beliefs, your actions, your words. All of those things carry energy and they create your energetic output, right? So what you put out into the universe will then respond to that energy, and you will be faced with situations, circumstances, people, experiences that reflect those beliefs, right? So what I teach people as a manifestation coach is, let's get in touch with what it is that you actually want out of your life. Let's figure out what's stopping you from getting there, and let's make it possible to clear the way of those blockages and get into energetic alignment with what it is that you want, so that you can invite it into your reality and experience it as part of your life purpose, right? So that's pretty much.
I love that. And I know you just kept mentioning conscious manifestation. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming, since you're saying conscious, there's an unconscious manifestation as well, which is more about us manifesting on a daily basis. And I'm very aware of this. I actually just created an episode a couple weeks ago about it. Mm-hmm. And I was talking about how when you wake up, the moment that you're awake and your mm-hmm. mind's awake, it's an alpha. So it's very aware of everything you're manifesting from the time that you wake up. So if you wake up and you say, oh,
it's going to be a horrible day.
Yeah, it's going to be a really bad day. Now, your energy, your words, you are literally telling the universe that today's not going to be a good day. So mm-hmm. maybe you can kind of go into depth right now of how somebody can go from an unconscious manifestation to a conscious manifestation type of mindset. Because I know it's not overnight success, right? There has to be some sort of, which I'm sure this is stuff you teach your clients too, but mm-hmm. how do you get them out of that kind of fear mode and into faith mode? What's the process?
So when we say unconscious manifester, essentially what that means is so let me actually start here. We all have a certain relationship with our thoughts, right? And it can be one of two types of relationships. The first one is where you over-identify with your thoughts. So you are blind to the idea that you can actually choose what thoughts you decide are your reality. And so when you're unconscious to that, every time you have a thought, you engage in that thought without realizing it, and it becomes your reality, right? Mm-hmm. As opposed to becoming an observer of your thoughts, where you are not just thinking these thoughts and then, endorsing all of them, right? It's more so you're looking at the thought as it happens and then deciding, is this something I want to believe, or is this something I don't want to believe? And analyzing your thought processes and what's working and what's not working, right? So what I teach my clients is start becoming an observer of your thoughts, right? If there is an aspect of your reality that's just not cutting it for you, maybe you're in an unhappy relationship, maybe you don't have as much money or financial security as you want, maybe there's your dream car that you've been trying to get for forever, but it hasn't been working, right? It's about identifying the thought processes that are preventing your manifestations from coming true, right? So for example, if I were to ask you, hey, why can't you have your dream car by tomorrow, right? And then, doubt, anxiety, so where does that doubt come from though? Oh, it's just not possible, right? It's not possible. It's not realistic. I make it a point to banish those words from my clients' vocabularies. Mm-hmm. We don't talk like that anymore, but it's important to understand where those limitations come from. And oftentimes what it is, it could be one of two things, but oftentimes your conscious mind is part of how you experience reality, and your subconscious mind is the other part, right?
Right.
Your conscious mind is what perceives your reality through your five senses, right? It's what you see, hear, touch, smell, taste, all of that, right? So your conscious mind is very limited in terms of what it thinks is possible, because it is limiting itself to what it has already seen in the past. And if you have not yet experienced that level of success that you're looking for, you are and you're continuing to not manifest what you want, it's because your conscious mind is operating from the past, and it's operating from the place of like, if it's never happened before, it's simply not possible.
And not just that, but also your conscious mind is about the physical reality. So what's happening right now. So if it's not in front of you, then you're not going to believe it.
If it's not, yeah. So your conscious mind is the skeptic, right? It's like, if I can't see it, it's not there, right? As opposed to your subconscious mind, which knows anything is possible, right? But it's operating on the program that you have wired into it, which oftentimes is through our conscious mind and the lens of our conscious mind, which is why it's so limiting. So what's important is to take your conscious mind off autopilot and become a gatekeeper of what thoughts you allow to pass through to become your reality, right? So again, it's really all about becoming an active observer of your thoughts to determine which thoughts we just don't want to be thinking as much anymore.
Yeah, I'm really realizing, because you're talking so much about the thoughts, and thoughts, I think, is very important. Why? Because your thoughts is actually what's creating the energy. There's no energy that's going to be created without you thinking about it first. So if you are aware, and this is something Joe Dispenza talks about, where he says, a really good tip and tool to do is get out a piece of paper, you want to get your pen, and start writing down all these thoughts that keep coming back and forth. And if you're like, oh, I don't know what those thoughts are, trust me, your mind knows what the thoughts are, because it's
just about tuning in.
They'll keep coming in there, and they are the ones that are going to keep you away from this reality that you're wanting to create. So if you can write these thoughts down, look at them and understand them and appreciate them, because now you're going to bridge, from this old reality into this new reality, this new identity that you're creating, and it takes time. And this is just me saying this, but if you guys are looking for somebody to be able to kind of coach you through all these things, we have Nadia. That's why I invited her, is because not only does she have her own transformational story, which to me is very important, to be honest, because if you are getting coached by someone that has not really experienced as much stuff, it's going to be really hard for them to relate to you. So she has the tools, she has the knowledge. The cool thing is she's still getting her master's, which is awesome, because she's still learning as well, just like how I'm learning, just like how you're learning. But I think that, if you're looking for somebody, because we don't have to do things by ourselves. There's tools out there, there's knowledge out there, and it's really important that if you're looking for that step to take in your life to just go from one reality into another, it really takes at least one person that can come into your life, and it's not them, right, giving you this light. The light already exists within you, but sometimes we need people to open certain doors and just guiding us, and I think Nadia, to me, I'm just so blown away with all the things that you've said, all the things that you've done, the things that you've experienced. And I know just from talking to you about how your other clients have, had a lot of success stories, a lot of success manifestation stories. And one of the things I actually want you to share is the blue feather.
Oh, yes. Okay. So this is a visualization exercise that I have all of my clients do as well. I post about it on my social media all the time too. I actually did not come up with this. It's a common teaching, I think, in Abraham Hicks, where, the visualization technique. But anywho, so it's this exercise to kind of almost prove to yourself that manifestation is real. Your thoughts do create your reality to some extent, right? So what I have them do is visualize a blue feather, right? If you were to close your eyes and with your mind's eye, project the image of a blue feather as if you were looking at it in real life, right? With all the detail, what shade of blue is it, right? What size is it? What does it look like? Really just spending at least 60 seconds actively engaged in that visualization and really just connecting with it, just closing your eyes, feeling like it's there, right? And then go to bed, right? So you're supposed to do it technically right before you go to sleep. You could also do it right when you wake up in the morning, right? When your brain, or when your subconscious is coming out of the theta brainwave. But the point is, do it at that point, either right before you go to bed, as in like, and I'm not talking do the visualization and hop on your phone for a minute, answer a couple emails and then go to bed. I'm talking right before you go to sleep. Holding that for 60 seconds, going to sleep. And then over the next couple of days, keep an eye out in your reality, because that blue feather is going to show up. Right. And a blue feather is one of those things where it's like, it's not something you really see every day. It's not something you really notice every day, but you like, it can't be a coincidence that you just did the visualization for this blue feather and then it's going to come up in your reality. Right. So, and the reason why it's so easy to manifest that blue feather is because there's no really emotional blockage towards it, because it's a blue feather, right? It's not like you're talking about making $1 million of like, oh, all these feelings come up. It's a blue feather. It's a very neutral thing. And so there's not going to be any blockages towards manifesting that, right? So that's often the first thing where my clients are like, oh, wow. Like I knew about manifestation and I kind of felt like it was, probably had some validity to it, but oh my gosh. Like I also have them do the same thing sometimes with the $20 bill in cash, right? That one really excites people of like, oh, I can manifest money. I can manifest real money in my life. And it's like, yes, you have that power all the time. It just depends on your, like the limitations that you've put on it that you don't realize are there.
Yeah. 100%. Thank you so much for sharing that. I really wanted you guys to hear about this because I think it's fun, especially if you've never really thought about manifestation, but you're curious about it. It's such an easy, fun thing to do. So now you have two things that you can do. You can think about the blue feather that she said, and then you can do the $20. And I would love
or anything really, any like small little symbol or object or something that is, you don't have a lot of attachment or limitation to, right? Because it's usually the doubt that will prevent that manifestation from happening. So something that you wouldn't feel doubtful that would show up in your reality.
Totally. And I would love for you guys to DM us and get in touch with us and let us know your success stories. Because Nadia and I love hearing the stories, because that's what we live for. And we just know how possible it is for us, because we do it all the time. We literally yesterday, I went to the gym and I was like, before I went to the gym, I did not have time to make coffee or anything, but I needed that caffeine. So I go to the gym, walk inside, I check in, two beautiful women, and they have like this ice chest full of energy drinks. And I'm like, do I really want to take it that far? Do I really want to take an energy drink? Yeah. And so they were talking to me. They're like, oh, hey, we're just here. We have all of these energy drinks. It's a new energy drink. Are you interested? And I thought you had to buy it or something like that. So I was listening to them and they said, yeah, it's free. And it's like the full size ones, like the Bang. Wow. Yeah, but it's called First Aid. And I was surprised. I was like, and then I started laughing at myself and I said, why am I surprised? My body was craving the caffeine. I wanted the caffeine. I did not have time to get coffee, but I wasn't attached to the coffee, but I said, I would really love to get that pickup, So I get to the gym and that's what happened.
Yes. And that is, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because the key piece of any manifestation and the key piece that most people who are really, really trying to manifest something and it's just not working, when you are attached, when you have an obsession with that manifestation, it usually means that your conscious mind, which is the part of your mind that's very limited because it's operating based on what is actually concretely seen before, your conscious mind is trying to work out the logistics of that manifestation coming, right? Which totally defeats the purpose, because the entire point is that you are communicating energetically with the universe will respond, right? So when your conscious mind is trying to pick apart the pieces of, well, how is this going to make sense? And how are these going to, you're delaying the manifestation, right? The analogy that I use with my clients is when you want to manifest something, you are planting a seed, yes, in the ground. When you plant that seed in the ground, do you dig it up every 5 hours to be like, okay, let's see how much it's grown now? No, right? Because number one, that if you water it and you take care of it, it will grow eventually, right? In the right timing. And number two, you're confident in the fact that it will come to you eventually, right? Or that it will grow into a tree or whatever it is. So the same concept applies to manifestation, where if you continuously doubt it and if you continuously dig it up, if you will, by thinking about it and trying to work out the details and when is it coming? Oh my gosh, why isn't it here yet? All these doubts that you're infecting it with, you're going to prevent it from actually coming to you. It's literally like you're putting a stop in the momentum of that manifestation happening. And so that's what's stopping you. And that's why most people will tell you what I have been able to successfully manifest The reason why it came to me is because I had released it. I had completely forgotten about it. I was not actively even thinking about it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of this is a question that I get all the time of like, because I tell people once you align with your desire, you know what that desire is and you're aligned with it, you have to release it, right? You got to stop checking up on it. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? The obsession. Just don't do any of that. Just let it go. And then people are like, well, so does that mean I can't think about it anymore? No, it's not that you can't think about it anymore. You can think about it as often as you want, actually. The problems start whenever you're thinking about it, you're being plagued with the doubt, and the doubt comes creeping in, the blockages creeping in. Why isn't it here yet? Because you have to think that everything you say and everything you do and everything you think carries an energetic frequency. So when you are questioning, why isn't it here yet? The energetic message that you're sending is that you're not sure if the universe is actually going to send it to you. You're not actually sure if this thing is going to come to you. It's coming from a place of lack, and it's coming from a place of fear of not getting this thing, right? So you have to completely switch gears if you're trying to manifest it. And whenever you think about it, you should be feeling feelings of excitement and gratitude and appreciation and optimism. It's like a very lighthearted, fun feeling.
Yeah.
So as soon as you start, whenever you're thinking about it and those negative emotions start coming up, take a break from the manifestation. You don't need to think about it right now, because the energy that you put towards those thoughts of your manifestations, that's what's going to influence whether they're coming towards you or away from you. So that's really important to keep in mind.
So 2 things I want to tell you guys. Number 1, Joe Dispenza always says, when you are in the midst of creating this new reality for you, the how, the when, the where, the what is not your business. Mm-hmm. As rude as that sounds, but this is the truth.
It's really not
your business.
It's
your
really
business is to figure out what is it that you want and how can I be this person, right? And it's about you having this energy of already being this person. It's not about just thinking about it and, hoping that it's going to come. No. It's about really waking up. You want to be a wealthy woman? Wake up. What does a wealthy woman look like? What does she feel like? How does she
What are her habits?
How does she walk? Exactly. You have to look into all of these things. And the way when I'm trying to manifest something very specific, I do my research on it. I go on YouTube, I go on Instagram, I go on TikTok. I want to know everything about it. And then that's when my creation happens. And a lot of meditation and visualizing and feeling, but walking in that energy as if it's already happened. So
another important thing I think that's important to mention is that going back to the part of the when, the why, the how, the where is not your business. This is another thing, is that your conscious mind is not aware of all of the working variables that are outside of you, right? That could influence this manifestation. So when people are talking about $10,000 by tomorrow, how is that gonna, or like whatever it is that they're trying to manifest, and they're having all these like questions of like, how is it actually going to come? You have to remember, your conscious mind does not know. Physically, it's impossible for your conscious mind to be able to conceive of every possible way that this manifestation can come to you, right? What if just the craziest things have happened where it's just like, you think it has to happen a certain way, but then like from left field, this whole other way that this manifestation can unfold drops into your lap. And that's why it's really important to be open as well to other ways that this manifestation could happen for you outside of the details that you're putting in your mind of how you think it should play out, right? So just keeping in mind that your conscious mind does not know everything there is to know about everything, does not know everything that's happening in the universe and what things could transpire to bring this thing to you.
100%. I will tell you, just out of experience, everything I've actually ever consciously manifested has never come in a way that I thought it was going to come. It always comes in a different way, and I'm going to tell you exactly why. Because in order for us to know that this is God, this is the universe, this is the divine, the infinite intelligence, it has to surprise you, and it has to come from a place where you're like, I know this is not for me. This is something that is connected through me and all around me, and it builds the faith in order for you to keep going and to keep wanting to create this beautiful reality, create your heaven on earth. And Nadia, you keep talking a lot about not having attachments and how important that is. And I think that is connected to divine timing. So is divine timing a real thing? And if so, how do we just put everything in the hands of the divine and to just really let go and just
let it happen?
Yep.
Yes. So I think, so number one, to answer your question, yes, divine timing is absolutely 110% a real thing. That's not to say that like something that you want soon is going to take 10 years to happen, right? It's usually like when you're in alignment, it will happen for you in a way kind of that you want it to, but also in a way that makes the most sense for you, right? Because another thing you have to keep in mind is you may want that. And I keep going back to money because that's what a lot of my clients like to manifest, right? So you may want $100,000 by next month, right? Are you going to know what to do with that 100K if you get it right now? Do you know how to manage your money? Do you know where you would put it? How you would spend it? How much you would save? All of that. So it's almost a protective measure, right? Of like the universe or, God, the higher power being like, wait, you got to take a couple extra steps first. You got to prepare yourself really to receive this in a way where you're going to be able to maximize the on the experience and like make it happen well for you, right? Because think about it. If I wanted the 100K by next month or by tomorrow, right? That's what I'm really trying to manifest. And I have horrible money management issues. I have no idea what I'm doing with my money, right? I get that 100K and somehow, some way, you never know what I could do to like ruin my life with it, right? Yeah. God forbid, right? So it's also about considering that you may not be ready just yet. And you may have to take a couple extra steps to make sure that you are ready for that, right? So again, like if there's something specific that you want, ask yourself, would I know exactly what to do with it if I got it right now? Another example is relationships, right? Lots of people want to manifest a healthy, happy relationship with their soulmate. If you were to get that soulmate to walk into your life tomorrow, right? Emotionally, are you capable of handling a healthy relationship right now? Or are there still a couple of emotional issues that you need to work out, or, the baggage that you need to kind of unpack? So that's really important to consider when we're talking about divine timing. What was the other piece of what you asked?
How can we learn how to surrender into the
yes. This is one of my favorite parts to teach about manifestation, right? Because a lot of the clients that I have are very goal oriented, very solution oriented. Like, let's do this. This is my goal. This is what everything is
very
about.
Masculine, right? Energy. Yep.
Yes. Of like, take action and do. But the other aspect of manifestation that is just as important as that part is to understand that it is never about the destination. It is always about the journey, right? If you spend your present moment always thinking about when that manifestation is coming, or what, just constantly putting yourself in the future, you are wasting the beauty of right now. You are wasting the present moment. And that defeats the whole purpose of the manifestation, right? Because another thing that's important to consider is that a lot of people think that their manifestation is going to fill some kind of void. Or it's like, once I get this manifestation, everything will be perfect and I will be 100% happy. Not the case, right? There's something in psychology. It's a phenomenon called the hedonic treadmill of happiness, where we all like to think that this thing that I want is going to make me happy and it's going to be the be all end all of my satisfaction with my life, right? When in reality, the way it goes is you get that thing that you wanted, and now you're back to square one of like, okay, what's next? What else is going to fit me, right? Because it's so the point is your happiness has to come from a completely different place. Your manifestations will not fill your voids. Your manifestations will not bring you ultimate happiness. Happiness is actually a choice. So if you can decide in your present moment to look at everything around you that you already have, that you already appreciate, that's another thing that's going to make it easier to not worry so much about when am I getting this manifestation. The timing aspect of it is that you need to be focused on enjoying the right now. And you can have it in the back of your mind, the excitement of, oh my gosh, this manifestation is going to come to me and I just know it, without necessarily being preoccupied by it, right? So focusing, and another thing that's also really important that I do tell my clients as well is you can't put all your energetic eggs into one manifestation basket, right? If I am putting all of my, optimism and excitement and all that energy into literally just one thing, you're running the risk of putting all your happiness in that one thing and it becoming like a snowball effect of, oh my gosh, this is the only thing that I can think about that brings me happiness. You have to distribute those eggs across several baskets. Okay. What are a few things that you want to manifest so that you aren't hyper fixating on just one and you're not risking making your whole life about getting this manifestation and then just forgetting every other thing in this world that can make you happy?
I love that. Actually, seriously, genuinely, that's the first time I've heard that because a lot of people will say focus only on one thing because it's a lot easier to manifest one thing. But I love what you said because I understand the intention behind it that if we are just focused on one thing, then yes, is it going to delay it? I don't know. I still have questions about certain things when it comes to manifestations.
Hmm?
And the reason why I say this is because I am such a big believer about divine timing, and I feel that we're co-creators, right? There is a creator and we are writing this book with the creator. Like, and you can definitely go back, you can
You are
erase,
the
you can
author.
edit. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. But there is, to me at least, in my perception, that there is this higher power that, for instance, I thought I was going to be married at 27 years old. Okay. This is something that I was like obsessed with, especially when I turned 25. Maybe it was 23. I think it was 23. And I was just really diving deep in all of this stuff. And I'm like, I'm going to get married at 27. I'm going to get married at 27. It's happening. And I'm thinking about it. I'm visualizing it. I'm doing everything. But I was doing it out of fear. I was doing it out of
Desperation.
desperation. I was doing it out of a way of just getting more validation for myself. 27 rolls around. What happens? Not married. 28 rolls around. Not married. 29 rolls around, still not married. Now I'm 30. And the way I look at it is I'm so grateful because if I actually got what I asked, there's no way that marriage would have survived. Why? Because I have changed and transcended on so many levels that
So at
I
the
am
time
not
that
the same person.
Yes. So at the time that you were wanting it, if you had received it, you could have set yourself up for a lifetime of misery, right?
Totally.
That is entirely possible. You don't know if that would have been the case, but it's entirely possible, right?
Yeah.
And you won't. And the thing is, this is what's so special about it is oftentimes we won't know until later.
Yeah.
Of like, oh my God, thank God that didn't work out, right? Or thank God I got out of that relationship of, where you think what you wanted was what was best for you, but then it became evident later on that what you thought was best for you was actually not what was best for you. And what you were resisting was actually better for your development. And that's actually another thing that is so important. This is actually part of my personal philosophy of, any form of tension or any form of like negative emotions, anything that's not good about what you're experiencing in this present moment it all boils down to this one thing. And this one thing is resistance. When you resist, that creates a plethora of issues in your life, right? Because radical acceptance of like, it is what it is. And there's, I'm just going to roll with the punches. That is so essential to being able to roll with the punches and not be controlled by the negative experiences that you face in your circumstances, right? Because the problem that a lot of people get into is they'll experience a negative thing and they'll hold on to that experience for so long that it becomes their permanent point of attraction, right? Of like, this is always the example I go back to. Me personally, I had abandonment wounds, right? From a relationship with one of my parents very early on in my life. And it's something that I'm very transparent about because I think a lot of people also struggle with the same thing. And so when before I had this whole transformation of like the power of now and, quantum field and manifestation, I had struggled a lot with my abandonment wound. And it literally all went back to resisting a certain event that transpired in my life and trying to, rationalize it or like make it just or make it fair, right? Instead of just accepting that that's how it went down, I held on to it for all that time and it created a lot of resentment and it became my point of attraction for my relationships. Yep. So I attracted relationships that reflected those wounds back to me, right? As opposed to in a perfect world, if I had just released that experience and accepted it for what it was instead of resisting it, I could have avoided a lot of those, toxic relationships where I was faced with the painful experience of somebody leaving me or somebody abandoning me, right? So it really is all about accepting everything for what it is. You cannot change the past. You cannot control anything that happened in the past. You can only neutralize your reaction to it so that it's not controlling your point of attraction for your future as well. So you're not like on this constant cycle of like, re-experiencing all your negative past experiences in different flavors right now.
Yeah, you know what? Thank you so much for just being so transparent and sharing that with us because I think it's really important, again, about us sharing our own personal experiences for people to
Mhm.
understand that you're not by yourself, you're not crazy, there's nothing wrong with you. Because
Mhm.
these are thoughts that I would go through when I was younger, when I was like, how is it that a lot of the people I know are getting married or they're having children and I'm sitting over here working on myself day and night? There has to be something wrong with me. There's got
Mhm.
to be something wrong. There's got to be something that is just not working out for me. Manifestation doesn't work for me. God doesn't think that I am worthy enough to have this partner, blah, 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 all this stuff that
Mhm.
I, self-sabotaging thoughts. But like yourself, I was attracting partners like that too, where it amplified the things I needed to work on. And it gave me that opportunity during those years where I didn't really talk to anybody and I was so focused on myself, but it gave me the opportunity to go back and to look at myself and be like, okay, we're not going to play the victim mentality here. I'm really glad I experienced everything I experienced because when I know what I don't like, now I know what I do like. But how do I now create this new person and bridge with it with the divine? It's not by myself. How can I
Right.
use my angels? How can I connect with God through different ways
Yes.
to be able to connect deeper with myself? So that way when I look at myself, I tell myself, you know what, you are beautiful and you are worthy and you are worth it. And
Mhm.
whatever it is that you want is possible for you. But how far can you invest in yourself? How far? And it comes down to how much are you willing to put into what it is that you want for yourself? And do you really
Yes.
think that you are worthy enough of actually receiving your manifestation, the affirmations you put out there, your prayers? And I would love for you to kind of talk about different tools that we can use to visualize. Because, like, for me, for instance, it's meditation.
Mhm.
Meditation is really big in my life where I just sit and I shut out the physical world and I tune in with the inner world. And it is a
Mhm.
very, very deep connection for me and for God to just sit and to have this beautiful conversation. And
Mhm.
sometimes I don't want to talk. I just want to hear God. And it's a really good time for me just to surrender into the unknown and to kind of walk into the quantum field and to start
Mhm.
taking things. So maybe you can kind of share a little bit on what are good tools that we can use to help us kind of connect deeper with ourselves? And is there, what is quantum physics too, if you can connect those both?
Yes. Yes. So I think it's so wonderful that you have such a great connection with meditation, and that is such an important skill for anybody to develop, right? But I will say that most people that I come in contact with, and like as a manifestation coach, is they haven't really gotten to that point yet where
Mm-hmm.
like they are very connected to the divine and they are very connected in that spiritual way through meditation, right? Especially if they haven't had that experience before. So it's kind of about making baby steps a little bit at the beginning to kind of start exercising that spiritual muscle of like close your eyes, just connect, look within, right? So I think the first part that is really really important for anybody to make any change when it comes to this stuff is start observing your thoughts. Start observing your thoughts as opposed to just automatically engaging in whatever thought comes up. Take a minute to think like, do I want to be thinking that? Like, is that something that's going to help me right now? Like, for example, this is always the example that I use, right? I'm driving on the road, I'm driving on the freeway. Somebody cuts me off. My initial instinct, based especially on my previous conditioning, might be to cuss them out, flip them off, just have a rageful experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if I become an observer of my thoughts, what I'm going to do, and this is what it took for me to do, because I did actually have really bad anger issues way back, way back when. So this was a really big thing for me of like, I gave myself anger management sessions and I would be like, all right, this thing just triggered me and I feel like I want to respond in this way. Maybe I should take a second to think, do I want to be that person right now? Do I want to be the rageful, flipping people off, cussing people out on the freeway? Or do I want to allow myself to release that experience so that it's not going to bother me or ruin or lower my vibration or lower anybody else's vibration, right? Because that's just as relevant too.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a really big piece is becoming an observer of your thoughts so that you can select which thoughts make sense, and so that also you can start filling your mind with thoughts that do make sense for you, that are in alignment with what you want to create for yourself. So in terms of actually, so it's a process. What I teach my manifestation clients is like, number one, get clear on what you want. Figure out what it is that you're trying to manifest and what it is that you're trying to accomplish with this, right? Number two, it's also really important to ask yourself where these desires are coming from. Because if it's coming from this ego place of like, I want validation, I want to show off or impress people or whatever, probably want to reevaluate that, because that may not be in alignment with your higher good or with your best interest, right? So getting clear, knowing what it is that you want, making sure that it's coming from the right place, and getting into alignment, which means, and I guess your question had to do more with the like connecting with the divine piece of it. And I think with the visualization technique that we were talking about earlier, that's one way to kind of bridge that gap. But and it's also really important. I feel like I'm going on 15 tangents, but I'm just
well, the thing is, they're all interconnected, right?
Yes,
like,
yes.
Everything that you're saying makes sense too, because you are giving people tools on how to get started, because there's a flow, there's a formula, there's an algorithm. You just don't all of a sudden believe in God and you're like, okay, good, perfect, I believe in everything. No, there's so much trial and error. There's a lot of heartbreak. There's a lot of crying. There's, at least for me, anxiety, a lot of depression, the ups and the downs. Like it's not pretty, but it's 100% worth it. And when I talk about meditation, it's not just sitting down like this, like a starfish, or like this or whatever. It's whatever brings you closer to yourself, where you feel that you're at peace. And so meditation is really being about in the present moment. So it doesn't mean that you have to sit down. It could be you belly dancing. It could be you painting. It could be you singing.
Whatever is going to monopolize all of your attention on this one thing that makes you happy. And that's different. And that's a great way for you to describe it. I'm so glad you said that, is because what lights you up and what raises your vibration may not be what works for somebody else. So it's a really self-discovery kind of a process of like, what are things in the past that you've done that have made you feel really happy and excited and in the moment, where there's a psychological term for it. It's called being in a state of flow. Have you heard that word? Mm-hmm. So flow is basically this trance-like state where you're so enveloped in this one activity that you're doing that you lose track of time. It feels like, it's 1 second and it's actually been like 6 hours, right? For some people that's painting, for some people that's reading, for some people that's meditating, for some people that's taking a walk out in nature. You know what I mean? Whatever it is that usually makes you lose track of time because you're so immersed in that activity. Because the whole point is, most of us, before we reach this, philosophy of be present, living in the now, we live either in the past or in the future, right? So we completely lose sight of what's going on right now. And when we say time isn't real, we mean that there will never be a future point in time. Okay. The past doesn't even exist anymore. The only thing you will ever experience is the eternal present moment. And the point is learning what to do with that present moment that will facilitate a happy life and, make it easier for you to co-create with the universe to achieve what it is that you want. Right. Yeah. So that's a really big part of it.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. I think that being in the present moment, I think this is a skill, especially in the society that we live in now, where you can buy something on Amazon, 2 hours later it's here, or just everything on social media, where it could steal your energy if you're just kind of on there and you're just mindlessly scrolling, and then 7 hours go by, it's the next day.
Right.
So it's like really important to know how to build that skill inside of us of how to be in the present moment, because there's so much power with being able to take a walk outside and to, how it is to smell the flowers. That's the analogy for go outside, be in the present moment, connect with yourself, connect with the divine, balance yourself, ground yourself in order to get that clear mind and the clear energy to keep walking this path. Because again, and I'll say this 1,000 times, this path is not the easiest path, but it's totally worth it. But it's like going to the gym. When you go to the gym, you're constantly building muscles and you have this specific body goal that you want to be. So it's the same thing with spirituality. You have to work on it on a daily basis. It's not something that you just pick up once a month and just get back to it, and then all of a sudden you're in the flow. No.
Exactly. Yeah. So it does.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it does, that makes absolute sense. That's so true, is that like, it is something that you have to sharpen. It's not something that's just going to happen overnight. And I think a good place to start with that is, and this is what I tell my manifestation clients, is let's analyze, if we were to make like a pie chart, right, of how you spend your present moment most of the time. Where is your head at? Is it worrying about the future? Is it ruminating on the past? that's important to consider, right? That's what you know is monopolizing your present moment. How much of your present moment do you spend doing things that put you in a flow state, right? So it's really keeping track of what you have been doing and what your habits have been in terms of how you've spent your present moment, and figuring out what needs to change in order to start connecting in a big picture kind of way and make those changes.
100%. Now, I know earlier in our conversation you mentioned quantum physics.
Oh, yes.
So, yes, let's talk about quantum physics, because this is one of my favorite topics to talk about. So tell me what quantum physics is and how can we connect with the quantum field?
So quantum physics is very relevant in the context of manifestation because it is the scientific explanation of the way we actually experience our reality. So there's a popular quote. I can't remember exactly what the wording was, but it's something along the lines of, you can't be a philosopher without having pondered quantum physics, because quantum physics is it's the concrete nature of what this reality really is, right? Down to the molecule, down to the atom, down to the how we as human beings understand what's around us. And so the reason why, so that's the reason quantum physics is relevant. A breakdown of the actual quantum physics behind manifestation is that, so originally based on the older school of thought when it comes to what is reality, and it's based on the Newtonian model, which is what a lot of us were actually taught in middle school and elementary school, right? And it's the model of reality that says everything around you is made of solid, right? So you have the solid itself, the makeup of that solid is it's 99.99% solid and 0.0001% energy, right? So it was this idea that you have the solid, and then the energy that acts on that solid is what makes it move locations or change states or whatever, right? So Albert Einstein comes along and he proves with his E=mc² equation that that's actually not the case. Everything is made up of energy. So once we knew that everything was made up of energy, so what you think is a solid, it's actually not a solid. The breakdown of that structure is it's 99.999% energy, and it's actually only 0.0001% matter, right? So everything is basically just a projection that you're seeing, and everything has a frequency. It's all in waves, right? It has wavelengths. Everything is constantly moving. It's constantly vibrating at a frequency that we actually cannot perceive with our limited, perception, but everything is vibrating and everything does carry a frequency, even if it's not an actual soul or living being. Everything has energy. So moving on after that point, physicists started studying the behavior of light particles. And so they were trying to figure out why would an electron appear here and then appear here? They were trying to figure out where it would appear and what the pattern was behind that, right? And they discovered that it's actually a phenomenon called the observer effect. And the observer effect is this idea that wherever you are focusing your mindful attention is where that electron would appear. And that's what they found in that experiment, is that wherever the observer of the experiment was looking is where that electron happened to generate or spontaneously appear, right? So that was the connection. So there have been other studies done, but basically the nugget, the whole thing is that your mind, your energy, your thoughts, your words do have an effect on your physical reality. Whereas before we used to think that, physical reality and your mind, two completely different operating systems, they function independently of each other. They are not the same in any way, shape, or form, and they don't really have a connection, right? It's more what happens, you deal with it the way you deal with it. So now we know that that's actually not the case. We know that where we focus our attention is what it will determine what will actually materialize into your reality. And so the way it works is it's called the collapse of the wave function. So wherever you are focusing your direct attention, that's what determines how the electrons and how everything will kind of fall together to materialize into this real thing in your reality. So that's the whole process of manifestation, right? Is you are conjuring something up with your imagination, you are sending it into the quantum field, and eventually, if you approach it the right way energetically, what's going to happen is there's going to be a collapse of the wave function, right? So what it is that you're thinking about, that's how the pattern of those electrons will come together to actually create something in your physical reality. And so that's basically the quantum physics of it. And it is important, right? Because, you know, it's important to understand that there is a physiological connection between your thoughts and what actually occurs in reality. And so this is also the explanation of the law of attraction, right? The law of attraction just says we all vibrate at a certain frequency. Based on our frequency or our energetic output, we will attract circumstances, people, events, situations of a similar frequency, right? So the way that you're vibrating, you're going to be seeing circumstances or experiencing your reality in a way that's parallel to your energetic output. So that's pretty much the whole
science lesson.
Yes.
Yeah. So for my science people out there, and just so you know, when I was younger, I hated science. I hated learning anything about physics, chemistry. Yes. I didn't care about any of that stuff, but because it was not taught in a way where it was interesting for me and I can actually use it in my life. Now, for both of us walking this path and walking into spirituality, the quantum physics and quantum field are very important in our daily lives because, like what Nadia was saying in English, what that means is your thoughts, your energy, it goes out into this field, right? When you're, especially if you're meditating, you sit down, you close your eyes, you are connected with a field full of possibilities. So now you're in this field in your mind because it's opened and you have this channel that's now open. When you're asking and you know what it is that you're asking and you're just surrendering to the process, you're surrendering to the possibilities, and you're not telling the divine, this is how I want it to happen on this time. No, divine, this is what I would love to manifest in my life. This is what I'm going to bring to you. What can you bring to me? And I'm open to receiving what it is that you're going to bring to me on divine timing. So for me personally, when I'm connecting with that quantum field, I'm opening up myself to all these different possibilities because the divine is so unlimited that the quantum field, guess what, matches that vibration because it is the divine. It is this like oneness consciousness, this energy where you don't even want to limit yourself because you want to be open to all the different paths that will be able to come to you.
Yes, that's exactly right. And that's the part that a lot of people, have a hard time connecting is there is actually infinite potential.
Yep.
And also another important thing that I think helps people kind of conceptualize it is every major invention across our lifespan as a species, right? That's a manifestation. Was it always possible at any point? No. Like, for example, electricity, right? Could electricity have existed thousands of years ago with what we knew then? Probably not, right? But because there was a lot of conscious thought being put into the idea of electricity or a light bulb, it happened, right? And nobody would have ever been able to guess thousands of years ago that would be a thing.
Right.
Like, what? No, there's no way. But again, we exist in infinite potential. There is never any, the only limitations are the ones that you put on your mind, right? So like a good analogy for it, I think that I just came up with, so hopefully it makes sense. Let's see, so think of like somebody who studies fashion, right? And they create clothes. That's like their thing. And imagine that based on their previous experience, hypothetically, they have only ever seen black and white striped fabric. That's the only type of fabric they have ever come across as the only type of fabric they think really exists, right? When in reality, there is a whole world of other fabrics. There's red, green, chiffon. There is, textured polka dots, all those different kinds, right? That because you've never had the exposure, you're not aware that it's possible to exist, but it's all there. It's just waiting for you to tap into it, right?
I love that example, by the way, especially since I'm a fashion stylist on the side. So it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, there's a lot of creating for sure. Wow. Okay. So this conversation so far, you guys, we've been through literally a wave of information.
Yes.
We talked about manifestation. We talked about quantum field. We talked about quantum physics. We talked about the divine. We talked about oneness consciousness and coming from Middle Eastern background and how, we went through a lot of contradictions in order to kind of really almost detox and purify the channel in order for us to kind of feel like this internal fulfillment, which is way deeper than the material things. But the material things are nice. Don't ever exclude that out of your life and be like, oh, I just want to live in my car. And I mean, if that's what makes you happy, go for it. There's nothing wrong with that. But there is a possibility that you can have both. You can have luxury and then you can also have this internal fulfillment with it because it comes from a place of you're not using this luxury to seal a hole. that's inside of you.
Well, and that's another thing, is like a big thing when it comes to the material aspect of manifestation, is a lot of people have this misconception that if you want money or if you want something, that you are inherently selfish or you're inherently greedy. When in reality, the more abundant you are, the better everybody else.
Not just that, then you can actually go back and give back, because at the end of the day, it's about being of service. How can we serve, and how can we
contribute?
Back? Yes, exactly. And to heal, the thing is, when you heal yourself, because we're all connected, you're also healing, the world. You're healing the people around you. You're healing your family, the people who are literally connected to your bloodline. So it's the healing work is such a beautiful process. It's not the easiest process, but it's really a beautiful process, because when you see yourself evolving, your environment starts to evolve by itself too. And that's why I always tell people, it's so important that if you think that you can change somebody's words or actions or life, you're in for a fun time, because you're not going to be able to do that. You're only in control of your own reality and your own energy, your own thoughts, and whatever it is that you want to put out in this world. But when people start to see you elevating, upgrading, and becoming your true self, and there's this like specific goal, I mean, not goal, but glow that people have to them when they are just walking this path of fulfillment, that people want to be around you. They want to know what it is that you're doing, and then that way you're able to be of service and lead by example, versus just doing all the talking. You want to be really a leader of example by really not just speaking about this stuff, but being somebody like this. So Nadia, I want to ask you more of like a personal question that you can maybe share with our listeners. But what is it for you? Because this is something I ask all my guests. But what is it for you when you are going through the midst of your challenges? How are you able to find the oasis within, or the peace within yourself, to keep going and to not give up?
I think a big piece for me with all of that is making the connection that a negative emotion or a negative thought or a negative experience in my present moment is temporary. It's fleeting. Just like everything else, the bad can only last for so long. And using that as like motivation of like, the sun will rise again. There will be a point in time where all of what's troubling me won't feel like an issue anymore. And it's also, another piece of it is asking myself the question of, like, when I'm going through a negative experience or something that's really difficult, is asking myself, what is this trying to teach me? What lesson should I be learning from this? Like extracting the meaning of that experience, because we don't experience hardship for no reason. There is always a reason behind it. And there's always a way to evolve behind it. If you decide that you want to take that and explore that part, right? So, just understanding, so that I don't feel resentful, that I'm going through this for a reason. It's helping me long-term in some way. Maybe just exploring that a little bit and figuring out, what is that lesson that I'm supposed to extract from this?
Yeah, you know what? You hit a really important part, which is, we didn't get to mention it on this show. We can literally talk for hours about this, but
I know.
I want to make it where it's long enough where people can hear it on their way to work or to wherever it is that you're going. But one of the most beautiful gifts that we were gifted with is free will. It's the will of being able to make decisions in our lives. So the divine can give you this opportunity, but at the end of the day, it's up to you if you actually want to take that opportunity and look at it from a growth mindset and do something with it for yourself first, and then do something for the world after, to be able to help other people. Or you have the option of just ignoring it and saying, well, it was just a coincidence and I'm just destined to always suffer. It's so entirely up to you on how you want to create your reality based off of how you think and how you perceive all these different opportunities that come to you. And I will tell you, and Nadia, I know you're the same, but we get opportunities on a daily basis from the universe. And they're not always the easiest, but we always have that choice of doing the self-reflection and going back and asking, why did this trigger me? What is it about this situation that triggered me? Okay, now I know. What can I do about it? And then when you start working on it, the divine is going to be there to support you. There's a whole spiritual team out there that you cannot see, but you will feel. and they are
Yep.
there to always support us and to help us, because we're, at the end of the day, we're not here by ourselves, and I just really appreciate your time and your energy and your beautiful stories and your wisdom, your intelligence, Nadia. I mean, you guys,
Thank
she is
you.
23 years old, so it's amazing to me when I see such a beautiful young woman on a path of so much purpose and
Thank
already
you.
giving back and wanting to create a difference, not just for herself or for her family, but just really on a macro level of wanting to create global change. Because for people like you, Nadia, who come into this life with a certain specific destiny and purpose, it's not the easiest. Sometimes as healers or as teachers,
It's testing.
very, very, but there's a good reason for it, because we are supposed to use this wisdom and these tools to be able to give back and to let
There's a
people see their
reason.
let people see their own inner light. We are not your
Mhm.
light. You are your own inner light. But it's sometimes you need some guidance in being able to kind of recognize your own beauty, recognize your own wisdom, your intelligence. We all come with these gifts, but it's really
Right.
learning how to use these gifts in a really good, beautiful way. So, what are the best ways for people to get in touch with you, whether they want to work with you or they want to take one of your courses or they want to
Yes.
follow you on social media? Because she really uploads really cool, amazing content on there that's just really quick. Yeah, really fast, quick facts. And
Thank you.
you're actually really funny. I do have to say that. You have this really cute, like, funniness to you. So it's really nice because it's entertaining too.
Thanks. I'm so glad you enjoy it. I have a lot of fun making that kind of content. But yeah, so if you want to, I have the manifestation course. It's called the Manifestation Mindset Academy. That's available. You can check it out on my website at www.nadiakhaled.com. So that's on there. There is also, I do group coaching with that program as well. So the next cohort will likely be in July, I think, is when the next one is rolling out. So if you're interested in potentially doing some group coaching, and it also does have a one-on-one element to it as well, where it's like a weekly one-on-one call. There's also a place on my website as well where you can actually send in your name and email and asked to and be put on the wait list essentially. So that's the first. And then there's also I do have other freebies on my website as well, like my top 11 favorite guided meditations. There's a bunch of stuff on there, and yeah, just my TikTok and my Instagram and all that good stuff. I also do have the Manifestation Circle Facebook group, and it's basically a place where I post extra resources like videos, manifestation exercises, journal prompts, and it's a place for everybody in the community to kind of engage with one another and ask questions and update each other on like success stories of manifestations. I also sometimes do live webinars on there as well. So anybody who's interested in keeping up with that stuff, definitely join the Facebook group. We'd love to have you there.
Perfect. And then when we launch this episode, I'll make sure to link all of her social media on there. So it'll be easy for you guys to get in touch with her. So for the millionth time, if you're not following me on Instagram, please do, only because I am so grateful that God is just sending me the most amazing people, and I have the opportunity to be able to interview them so they can share their stories and tools with you guys. And I put all of that information specifically on my Instagram. So I have the Facebook, I have the TikTok, but the Instagram is the most important one because that has all the details on all the guests that I have, and it's finding the oasis within on Instagram. And last but not least, our ritual here on this podcast is I always love to take a very beautiful grounding breath with my guest. And then after the breath, I would love for you to share either an affirmation, a prayer, or words of wisdom from yourself. Does that sound good?
Yes. Yes, of course.
All right. Whenever you're ready.
All right. So I have two affirmations that I use pretty much every day. The first one, I wake up in the morning and I say to myself with a smile on my face, right? Because faking a smile actually creates the same physiological experience in your brain. So you can actually fake the happiness, right? With a smile, I say, I allow the universe to surprise and delight me today. That's the first one. The second one is, I am happy, healthy, and wealthy.
I love it. Very simple, straight to the point, and I'm sure you guys can feel the energy from the words that she said. So yes, use those affirmations. Let us know how they benefit you. And Nadia and thank you so much. There's my Arabic. Thank you so much for just being a part of this platform and just sharing everything with us today. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I feel like I've been able to learn a lot from you just in a little bit of time. And I know our listeners have definitely benefited and gained from you. So thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you for having me. It was so great to be on here and to talk with you about all of this. And, never know when the next episode is going to be, right?
Oh, for sure. No, I will definitely have you back on here because we're constantly learning, and I know there's so much that we can share.
Yes.
But I think this was just the perfect episode to be able to have co-creating together and with the divine and all of this stuff. So yeah, it's definitely been fun. And I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and just know that I'm sending you all the divine love and support. Have a good one, you guys.
Thank you for being a part of the Finding the Oasis Within experience. You can follow and reach out to us on our Instagram page at Finding the Oasis Within. You can also subscribe to our Spotify and Apple Music accounts so you never miss an episode. Remember, we are in this together. One breath, one heart, one soul.